I worked really hard on creating a comprehensible script you can follow here. So it'll sound more like I'm a scribe than I am an intellect, but here it goes. Where's the... There it is. I'd like to say good afternoon to this new church community. I want to start off saying that I'm a participant in the Theistic Science group that meets weekly. This science group continues along spiritual paths where science clearly drops off. The participants are on the wise side of life, having read much and lived much. I simply follow the various threads of conversation. I write notes, wishing or hoping all this confidence could be captured in new church science textbooks. Also, what you will see here as my lack of intellectual skills, well, that lack might reveal my desire to maintain Bernathen College of the new church as the unique academic institution that it is. An institution dedicated to knowledge and practices that bring spiritual reality closer in my life, in every life. Theistic science opens that path for me, and I will share that with you. The members of this group articulate a devotion to the Lord, the spiritual world, and life in every soul, even mine. This in terms above the powerful forces of hard sciences that promises life in a test tube and thought in a computer, as if hard science alone were sustainable answers for the human race. Internally, in weekly Theistic Science Zoom sessions, I'm allowed to think and maybe say what I fear is not obvious to the speakers themselves. An easy example, when a scholar proposes a spiritual origin, naturally I speak up with a question. Like, years ago I might have burst out with, "Are you serious? Conatus? Endeavor? Life on planets?" On the other hand, with affirmative doubts, I am open to testing. Can I really believe what the new church teaches? Am I ready to see from a spiritual reality? With eyes and heart wide open, the answer is yes in the burning bush. Today, I continue to find the space to pose affirmative doubts that lead to genuine confidence in the Lord's kingdom. The title of this presentation, A Testimony to Theistic Science from the Classroom. This, based on my 10 years teaching physics here at Bernathen College, again, of the new church. And if I can figure out how to flip the page down. Click the, which one over here? Oh, I see. Got it. Got it. That's fun. Here's an outline of my presentation. Number one, true to the title, I offer a personal testimony in light of my experience as a textbook instructor and my aspiration to serve genuinely higher education, as pictured by Laban and Jacob parting shortly. Number two, I present an example from the first day of a new church physics course, without and then with a sense of spiritual reality in a simple diagram. Number three, beyond the physics course, actual physics is shown to operate in one or more minds. If you can believe it, this is a useful and heavenly diagram. This diagram serves as a simple map to navigate something complex like a relationship. All this from a physics course? Yes. Afterwards, let's discuss how it might go forward in terms of a new church physical science major. Okay, let's start with the class. True to doctrine, and specifically spiritual causation, it makes sense to start every lesson with a spiritual workout from the Word. Calling and testimony are connected throughout the Word. For instance, our symposium theme, the burning bush, is a calling to be instructed. The book of Exodus is a testimony to spiritual regeneration and the path to heaven. Likewise, this presentation is my testimony in reply to a calling. This parting of Jacob and Laban from Genesis 31, shown here, depicts a testimony or witness to the ordering of the spiritual and natural in the Word and in me. I like this heap of stones. This heap is an altar. It serves as a foundation for the Word. It conveys a sense of solidity and simplicity, like the burning bush. This simple heap invites contemplation. Simply stated in Matthew, on this rock I will build my church. Jacob, as depicted here, represents me, the educator, putting my spiritual reality above physical actuality. Laban, in the physics classroom, thinks that being kind means worldly-based instruction from the textbook, because that is how a secular world works, and the students are paying for such. Jacob and Laban are one mind, my mind. The point being, I see myself in both Jacob and Laban. The educator looks for unrealized tension in the classroom. Some students are looking for their calling. Some students are looking to learn techniques toward their intended vocation. Vocation or calling? Which is it? Can a course do both? Can I do both? Is it up to me? Genuine faith, of course, is given from heaven for the teacher and the students. This altar stood as a witness to the Lord. In Arcana 4194, let Jehovah watch between me and you means the presence of the Lord's divine natural, even in a physics lab. I was surprised to learn so much developmental content in this relationship. It's even about education in the appearance of physics. So, I taught introductory physics at Bernathen College from 2012 to 2022. Surviving the panic of designing a new course in 2012, I quickly became an effective instructor for the students who signed up. But by the time I retired in 2022, I asked myself some hard questions about being of genuine service to the students in the classroom. But I was in no way capable of pulling together an entirely different course. What kind of course? Well, letting go in 2022 was the best thing that could have happened to me. Secular textbooks are typically a collaborative effort involving a small army of expert science educators. They are very good at what they do. Yet every year I was aware that I was not opening many doors for spiritual awareness. The secular textbook is entirely geared to frame physics in terms of mathematics and solving mathematical word problems, and they are very useful in the mind of STEM researchers. Teaching physics prepared me. It gave me a thirst for something deeper, something of innocence. In this slide, I have collected snapshots from a physics lab in our Deering atrium. Here we see a pendulum fashioned with a bowling ball. This 3-story conical pendulum orbits very closely with a period of 6 seconds, perhaps giving the sense of planetary motion, or perhaps a sense of our cycles of spiritual state. As a lab experience, this pendulum works well for a group exercise with students with various skills and interests, and I can imagine recreating this very same setup in a hands-on new church physics experience. But the physical truth is, inventing a dual reality physics course is time-consuming and mentally challenging, yet with a very still, quiet voice, it is rewarding. So, I'm going to share a short example from the first day of my secular physics course, where the goal is to remind students about scientific notation and provide an end in view. And for that, I will take a few minutes to show this video called Cosmic Eye that starts with a bird's eye view of a student relaxed in their backyard and then zooms out to the largest physical concepts of the universe, back to the familiar bird's eye view. And then the video zooms into the eye and into the finest things of nature, stopping at the scale of subatomic quarks, and then back to the familiar bird's eye view in the backyard. There's actual usefulness in seeing scientific notation measuring physical space in both the expanse and the minute. So without further ado, I will, it's this guy here. I think this is going to work. Nope. How did this get, that's got out of sequence here badly.
You can just...
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, sorry. To home. And if I want to escape that guy, do that, and I will. Yay! So, what do you think? I think any student would see a very material universe, and I fear a complete disconnect with creation concepts from religion class. Well, there's nothing wrong with the video. It's good with what it does. And Laban from Genesis, if he's wanting a hard science education, he'd be totally on board. On the other hand, as the instructor, I'm wondering if I am presenting a God of the material and ignoring some God of the spiritual. I am not sure if I'm representing God at all. You can read here the questions that passed through my mind as a secular physics teacher in a new church college. Having passed through these questioning times, with time to compose my thinking theistically, well, let's start with this. Fundamentally, the new church is clear about the distinction and correspondence of the physical and spiritual worlds. Likewise, the distinction and correspondence with every natural and spiritual mind. And fast forward, here's the get well plan. I will relax space in the physical world to submit to state or state of mind in the spiritual world with the appearance of space. The Lord invites each of us to bring state and space together toward useful service. How might all that usefully appear in a physics class, in the spiritual world even? Hold on. Back to the slide. I have captured 7 representative snapshots from the Cosmic Eye video we just watched. These snapshots are shown here on the screen, and these are in a sequence of diminishing scale from the coarsest to, oh shoot, that wasn't supposed to happen. I touched the screen. Okay, it's coarses, and it goes up. Okay, so this is the coarsest scale, and that's the finest scale. So get used to that idea. You can see a lot of it. So at that finest scale, hard physics reaches its experimental limit, the quark. So every physicist should wonder, and many do wonder, what lies under this finest scale. But first, a short account of how Ian Thomson, the New Church quantum physicist, appeared in my life as a physics instructor. At Bernathen College, it was beyond the pale to drag most biology students through 1,000 pages of text. Make sure I get this up here. Through 1,000 pages of textbook in 2 terms, 20 weeks. Introductory physics textbooks are geared to develop certain mathematical skills and confidence at the college level and not to frighten the same students with the complexity of atomic and quantum physics. That's the textbook. In contrast, this engineering instructor, me, was actually drawn to the back half of the textbook. This back half is where modern physics picks up with space-time relativity and the spooky world of quantum physics. In 2017, there were 4 exceptional students who were game to follow with me, and I believe that was a successful endeavor. I felt like a real physics teacher. About this time, I became aware of a New Church physicist named Ian Thomson, and he is a New Church author, and you know him. He was on stage here this morning. And turns out Curtis Childs interviewed Professor Thomson in 2015 as part of Off the Left Eye channel on YouTube. His books are definitely a curiosity and a challenge for my engineering brain. For starters, this quantum physicist wrote a book, Starting Science from God, without equations and formulas. In contrast, my engineering mind questioned my role as a physics instructor in a New Church college. I was almost fearful to meet him. I need not have worried. Fast forward to 2022, when I got a long-term chance with the Theistic Science group, thanks Andy, to learn about the author behind the book. But it was not until this symposium started to take shape in 2025 that I considered searching Off the Left Eye for Ian Thomson. I was very surprised and pleased to find this 2015 interview in early 2025. And I was ready to listen and hear this interview with much appreciation to Curtis Childs' skill as a host. And I'm so glad that I did. Just a few months ago, it felt a bit odd that I, a retired physics instructor, would ask the physics members of the Theistic Science group about this interview and whether they really saw the quantum world as a physical door into the spiritual world. The answer was quickly, what else could it be? I was quick to search the writings and pre-theological works. They strike deep. And then I remembered the Cosmic Eye video and roughly recreated it in the form of this diagram that zooms in with that series of snapshots from course to find. A word of explanation. This gray triangle is actually something of a 2-dimensional graph with x and y axes. The vertical axis is a measure of scale, field of view, during the zoom process. This scale spans from a single particle or quantum particle on the top down to a body of particles. And by the way, did you get a sense of motion when zooming into a fixed point? And now realize both my eye and the object remain motionless. This is important. Nothing moves in the video or this diagram. The horizontal axis is the number of particles contained in the field of view. It is strange indeed to know that subatomic quarks have no size or diameter. And here I am, keenly aware of my sense of a material world with physical laws that do not really depend or care about whatever I understood from the heavenly doctrines. That's with this diagram. Mercifully, the writings reassure me that the Lord patiently allows my natural mind to rest easy with that material thought until temptations arise. And please hold that thought. I'm getting used to this. So, could I construct a similar diagram with a spiritual scale, following what we read about this world without space and time, one which has no measuring sticks or wall clocks, or at least not for the purpose of tracking space and time? So here it is in a most simple form. Again, the vertical scale is spiritual space or state. The horizontal scale is a number of spiritual particles or truths. These passages from the writings help dignify my doctrinal imagination. I am not making this up. From Arcana 7760, furthermore, the good of charity also receives its particular quality from the quantity of truths of faith, and in addition, from the connection of one truth to another. This is how spiritual good is formed with a person. Following that, a clear distinction should be drawn between spiritual good and natural good. Spiritual good, as has been stated, derives its particular quality from the truths of faith and the quantity of them and their connection with one another. So, the top of the triangle is a quantity or a body of goods and truths. The bottom of the triangle is a single truth. Not that I have any idea what a particular or single particle of truth is about. Do you wonder what the writings have to say about a single particle? Question. And I was a bit challenged on how to introduce discrete degrees without drawing horizontal lines that distinguish higher and lower worlds. Without much research, I decided that discrete degrees would work horizontally across the color bands, where the vertical axis is about the scale of state. Thus, influx from the divine flows left and right in this diagram. I am challenged what to make of the relationship between the large scale at the top and the small scale at the bottom. So I am simply labeling such as continuous degrees of thought and affection. But I'm not yet sure I want to defend that without understanding what that might mean. But so far, so good. I'm exploring for good use. So given these two diagrams, I brought them together as any new church explorer might do, bring the natural and spiritual into close proximity. That's what we're supposed to do. And here is what the diagram looks like. And of course, this is just a diagram, but diagrams are useful in explaining material physics and maybe some doctrinal concepts. I did add some vertical arrows to invite thoughts of spiritual causation and natural feedback. Still, it is hard to see a functioning spiritual natural connection in this diagram, so just arrows so I don't forget to follow up. I added something unusual to the diagram, an observer. This is a placeholder for the multiple choice question, who is the observer of this diagram? If you are awake and following me along, your mind is observing this diagram on the wall remotely. If this is a diagram or a navigational map of my mind, who is the observer in my mind? Do you think this diagram depicts the relationship between the natural and the spiritual worlds? Personally, I felt very uneasy depicting this alarming disconnect, a disconnect between my spiritual mind and my physical mind. So, prognosis. That uneasy feeling, that very uneasy feeling, depicted an alarming disconnect, a disconnect between my spiritual mind and my physical mind. And prognosis, that uneasy feeling was the result of meditating on the Word and the heavenly doctrines, and the same mind studies hard physics. Thus, two realities. I carry both true and false beliefs in my life. This diagram is screaming a false belief. There is no spiritual life. I did it again. There is no spiritual life contained in physical matter. In contrast, is a true belief. Physical matter has existence from spiritual causation. Are these spiritual and natural triangles independent possibilities, or are they two independent realities? Do two independent realities describe my mind? So I mean this emphatically. The burning bush in me saw the crisis, and I bravely colored in the black physical scale with an overlay of spiritual content with stripes of discrete degrees. Again, there is no physical displacement or motion represented in this diagram. This is all about scales, both physically measurable on the bottom and spiritually fundamental on the top. So, looking at my body, right here, I can mentally zoom in without moving and developing a sense of intimate spiritual proximity, down to the finest things of nature and beyond, and into the finest things of spirituality. For the new church physics educator, I would recommend using the secular textbook where math, formulas, and laws abound, but color these as physical effects that arise from spiritual causation. That invites a very human tenderness into hard physics. So I'm going to breeze through the next two slides with a sampling of quotes without taking physical time to read them now. This is representative of the fact that I do a lot of reading in the writings, and I write everything down, and these passages, which will show up in the recording, can be looked at later on. I don't take readings from the passage. That's the reason I'm doing this is because I am reading the writings. So, here, the nexus between the physical and spiritual is described. That's this area here. This is that nexus region down here. And this is described in Ian Thompson's book in terms of potentialities, propensities, physical selection. Remember we hearing about that earlier? That's where we are. Okay, that's the quantum world. This, along with the mechanisms of spiritual causation as continuous creation from the divine and corresponding feedback. So we have those arrows on here between the two. Feedback invites the possibility of physical consequences and human choices, something that produces spiritual effects. Spiritual causation arises from within, top to bottom, on this diagram of physical and spiritual scale. The Lord is always accommodating the path to our heavenly potential. So when we're talking this, we're not talking about science in a book. We're talking about everything. Everything here is down to the finest grain. In this chart, I have restored the snapshots from cosmic eye on the physical scale and repeated the same on the spiritual scale. And we see something of the spiritual imagery that does not appear different than the familiar imagery of physical life. Please keep in mind the vertical scale is a zoom in and out to a particular point, to any point. Any point is a nexus between physical and spiritual. Every point. Thus, every point seen in the physical body at the bottom has its nexus with its spiritual body depicted in the top. Zoom in, zoom out. I just want to emphasize that this one point is actually on every scale here. We zoomed in. We're at that point there. We zoomed in there. We go to a different point. But so there's a bunch of points we're zooming in on there. So it really cuts to the heart of things we heard in each one of the presentations today. Correspondence is the mechanism for a natural mind to understand and be one with its spiritual counterpart. Thus, the physical image on the bottom mirrors the spiritual image on the top. The heavenly doctrines use our natural familiarity to paint heavenly imagery. And from that, we can develop spiritual substance through our life experiences. Rationally understood substance. This is a spiritual invitation offered by New Church doctrines, and I am clear that it takes effort to accept. And now, the diagram is starting to look like something my physics mentors were revealing. The quantum is a portal to something both familiar and spiritual in me. Sometimes I wonder if I am more awake to the spiritual world than my sensual mind can possibly perceive. So the black triangle is still there for the sensual experience in the physical world. You can see it hiding behind the colored bands in the natural side. The close proximity of the spiritual reality, color bands, is preserved within every bit of every particle at every scale at that natural level. This is the picture that conveys a merciful New Church understanding of physical spiritual duality, something we can discuss. And remind you, what I'm doing here is this is something I'm presenting in the physics class, and I've never done it before because I've never had a chance to. I'm putting it forward here for conversation. I'm going to switch over to build one little extra step. Introduce order. Order is a hot topic in every discussion. Do I communicate order or disorder? For instance, these days, we are hard-pressed to say what order is, at least out in the world. It's sad to say, my natural mind is fast to point to disorder. Like, I tell you what gets me really upset. So, with that introduction, kingdoms in the doctrines reflect our sense of order, something associated with heavenly government. So you have kingdoms shown up in here. Over a lifetime, we come to see spiritual order as the basis for natural order in terms of kingdoms and heavenly government. So, observers, observe the mineral, vegetable, and animal kingdoms, two each in correspondence in the spiritual and natural world. And in short, here's the insight. Every speaker today is focused on a particular kingdom in here. I'll show you how. Each succeeding kingdom zooms out to a higher manifold of particulars. So again, that's one particular, but there's a host of particulars there, a host of particulars up here. So make sure you got that in mind. On the top, under mineral kingdom on top here, we have spiritual causation, thus enters endeavor and physical causation at the finest spiritual scale. On the bottom, we have physical effects in the mineral kingdom. Enter atomic and quantum laws at the finest physical scale. Note space and time effects. And these were, as I said, elaborated in Ian Thompson's book. So observe the two vegetable kingdoms. Enter spiritual life systems, visualized as biological cells and reproduction as to cause. We got that in spades today. On the bottom, physical effects in the vegetable kingdom. Enter physical cell reproduction. In contrast, life in the womb and life in the test tube. Protein folding. That's another subject where extreme physical complexity begs for spiritual direction. And here's a hint you go see about it. And Steve Smith gave a great presentation at the 2019 Theistic Science Symposium. Also enter on the physical side, physical evolution and compare, neo-Darwinian evolution, intelligent design. And all this was just described in Rubens Bell's presentation, described in his book, Intelligent Default. Then observe the two animal kingdoms. That's on scale with a central nervous system. On the top, we have spiritual causation. For animals, they have said to have natural afflux and spiritual influx and soul receptor. But for humans, enter free will, rationality, which is the substance of spiritual regeneration. On the bottom, physical effects. We have sensory, nervous, motor systems, and physical thought and external memory effects. On the next slide, we focus on the animal scale and human thought and our rational mind. I'm building up on this and this I'm going to focus on. What's the point of this when we have minds here? Thus, we step closer to what this means to me. The magnifying glass observers of the previous diagrams are reframed here as an outline of me. In this way, I invite the audience to be their observer as much as I am inviting myself. This observer in me still invites the many stand-in observers as listed here in the box. The abstract state space diagram with many colored bands is now positioned as a map or navigational aid of the dual brain-mind within me. This diagram instead is positioned over the brain and thus implies both the physical chemistry and corresponding spiritual causation of thought coming together at the finest things of the brain, the nexus, the quantum portal in me. My mind, every mind, contains real physics as diagrammed here and introduced earlier. And speaking of observers, the Lord is depicted here as he is said to appear as a spiritual sun, always in front and above my every gaze. And that is a head-turning thought for certain. A burning bush as representative of my most interior that is depicted through the Moses account. The spiritual world endeavors effects in the natural world. Physical actions feed back real consequences. But to see this, we need and have our rational mind. Thus, in the context of that rational mind, I have the words down here that theistic science makes the spiritual world a necessity. But we are cautioned, the path to heaven may not be what one imagines. In this interaction with the dark spirit, Swedenborg meets with someone who has distorted the Lord's heaven into something of his own creation. In the words in the box there from Arcana, I talked to him, and he said that he was in his heaven when things were thus, and that no other heaven could possibly exist than that which he created for himself. But I was led to reply that his kind of heaven is turned into hell as soon as heaven, as it really is, flows into it. This caution is actually encouragement to read and meditate and practice the word regularly. My natural mind is often surprised to wake up to what the word and the heavenly doctrines want me to understand. So get ready for the next slide. The other spirited people in my life are my first reality check. Thus, the Lord's words, where two or three are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Slide. The spiritual world in angelic tension with hell is hardly a lonely existence. To the contrary, heaven is constantly encouraging us to work together and for one another. Hell thrives on self-serving relationships. Heaven thrives on healthy relationships in forms of charity as depicted repeatedly in the writings. This diagram here depicts a heavenly relationship with the Lord viewed in place. Each mind is mapped to receive influx from the Lord, which accommodates naturally apparent uses in the physical. The relationship is a closed loop with wise choices made in the context of the marriage of the Lord and his church. While my natural mind thinks of the human condition as a problem, we are invited to celebrate the spiritual condition as an opportunity, trusting the Lord. The diagram shown reinforces the necessity of the spiritual world, certainly from a New Church theistic science understanding. Keeping this necessity in mind is a comfort when I'm feeling relationship challenged, and seeing such in this simple diagram is a comfort. There is comfort for my natural mind knowing there are powerful spiritual forces in play in every life, and these forces are working very close from within. Confidence in the spiritual world offers up the possibility to realize actual relationships, foremost in most college students. And also the possibility to see the Lord operating in every person I meet in a world of mixed motives. This diagram within a diagram depicts multiple closed loops in every human relationship. When I think about marriage, I am asked to form closed loops of awareness. The very person I am talking with may be the Lord reaching out to me. He is. So, in closing, I'd like to invite a discussion on small steps. That was an example of a physical science class at the Bernathen College that I've never given, never had the chance to give. I invite a discussion on small steps toward a new church physical science major. And with that said, I open the floor for discussion, maybe in the next 30 minutes. This is my closing slide. Thank you. Erase it. Thank you, Ian. Oops. Oh, does anybody have any questions? Probably not.